Welcome, everyone, to our solution series this week, this month, actually, the event for this month. And I'm joining you from Kansas City. We were just talking a little bit about how spring is starting to join us here outside of Colorado, where a few folks you are from, where it's still dry in winter, but or periodically. And then up in Toronto, hey, Rohan and team, I know you guys are finally starting to hit a little bit of spring as well, but welcome to everyone to this event today. We'll give another minute or so before people join. But again, yeah, drop where you're coming from. So a couple from Toronto, Colorado, myself. All right. Well, as we get ready to jump into the content for today, I wanted to talk just a little bit um, on the sorry about that. I got a little hiccup there. So Austin, Texas. Hey, JP. So CX on the Rocks, we've been now running for a little over a year, and it's been a great experience. It's been great, community. We're going to go into this second year with a little bit of change, and so you'll start to see some communication coming out from us. Those of you who don't know who CX on the Rocks is, as far as the collective goes, maybe you joined because of an outreach I did or one of the other partners did. But it's really a collective and a community for like-minded professionals to get together and talk about the challenges of customer experience, learn from different experts like Jason today. And we're going to continue to go into that, but we're going to get a lot more targeted and focused on how we deliver the value to the audience, to you as members. And so more to come on that. So just to introduce that, but if you want to learn more, the website is cxontherocks.com. You can take a look at that and periodically see how we're changing messages. But cxontherocks.com is the current website, and we may change branding a little bit as we move forward as well. But anyway, a lot of great things going on. I know I just finished up a couple of different weeks at different conferences, and the topic du jour, as everybody knows, is AI. And we're going to talk about that, at this point. And, a lot of the research that I've been doing and the companies that I've been talking to and even the reading that I've done online is, a lot of companies have been started to invest, right? There is strategic work being done. There is tactical work being done from an AI perspective, but everybody says that 2026 is the year that it needs to start delivering, that it needs to start more of a return on investment associated with the money being invested in essence into AI and those capabilities. But again, AI, those two letters are pretty confusing sometimes because AI is not a piece of technology, although sometimes it's thought of that way. It's a way of doing almost everything from that perspective. So I'm happy to have on the call today and leading the solution series this month, is Jason Ten-Pow. And I'll let him kind of give him more about himself and introduce him, but a great topic. I've gotten a sneak peek of this going forward, and this is so important. It's such a great topic for us to really delve into today. So Jason, I will let you jump in and start talking to the content.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. Today, we're going to be discussing the new CX Feedback Playbook. It's all about data collection, how we're going to collect that data and transform our interactions with our customers in a way that deepens and improves and creates unbreakable relationships. Wanted to start by just giving you a little bit of background. I'm a data analytics expert trained at the University of Michigan. I've been working at customer data for 25 plus years. Way back in 2001, pioneered digital data collection by creating one of the first online research engines. I've worked for many companies across the boards with companies like Deloitte, Yum Brands, and many, many more. So thank you for taking the time to meet today. Wanted to start by talking a little bit about going back to the very beginning of customer experience and where it all begins. Why do we care about customer experience? And that's the first question that, when I'm sitting in the room with executives and people want to talk about customer experience, that's usually where they start is, why should I care? And the question has a very simple answer. 53% report that experience is a significant reason for their purchase. So this is from the customer's perspective. This is what customers are saying, according to the State of CX 2026 report. Now, you may think 53%, that doesn't seem like a large number. However, if you consider this number 20 years ago, what this would look like in 2005, that number was almost single digits. That means the experience wasn't all that important. In fact, price and quality was really sort of the two markers accounting for 80 to 90%. That's not the case anymore. The experience is very, very important. In fact, it's just as important as the quality, just as important as the price. And as a result, experience is now a key item on the agenda of leadership when they're thinking of understanding how to grow their brand. And so that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. So how do you grow your brand through that engine of customer experience? Well, it all starts with collecting feedback. Why do you collect feedback? Well, it's very simple. Customer knowledge. At the end of the day, the goal for every company is to improve their level of customer knowledge so that they can, at the end of the day, provide that knowledge to their employees, and their employees can execute against that to create unbreakable relationships. And that is the thing that connects the customer to the brand more so than ever before. So before we go any further, let's talk a little bit about the traditional feedback playbook. The traditional feedback playbook is very simple, and it's been around for a very long time. Hasn't evolved much over the years, but it usually starts very simply with, hey, a customer interacts with your brand. It may be the fact that they visit your website, they call customer support, they email you, or something else. At the end of that experience or that journey to purchase or to get support, brands ask their customers to rate their experience. And why do they ask that? Because we know, and brands are fully aware, that customers' emotions are their drivers of their decision making. That's the shortcut they take to get to a choice. And how they feel is the engine that brands need to understand in order to build unbreakable relationships with their customers. And so today, we're going to talk about that feedback mechanism, specifically around how does it work, how is it evolving, and what are the inherent risks associated with this evolution that's taking place. That includes AI. When we talk about customer data, there are a number of challenges, but these challenges can really be bucketed into two key topics. Number one is speed. Now, speed's a very general topic, and there's two elements to speed. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And also response rates. Those are the two biggest challenges facing brands today when it comes to understanding customer emotions. Now, most people think that these two topics are actually related. However, they are not. They're actually very different. And I'll talk about the differences and the nuances a little bit right now. Let's start with the speed confusion. There's two ways that brands talk about speed when it comes to collecting feedback. The one way is speed to complete a survey. Now, if we go back 20 years, I keep going back to 20 years, but if you go back 20 years ago, you can imagine what a survey looked like. It looked like a long sheet of paper just posted on a digital page. And you were going to go down and you were going to click your answers. It would take 10 to 15 minutes. Everyone seemed, oh, this is cool, I'll do this. However, times are changing. Customers are less and less willing to provide feedback. And when they're providing feedback, they are not willing to invest 10 to 15 minutes anymore. You'll be lucky if you get a few minutes of their time. The second issue related to speed is speed to insights. Speed to insights is now a big topic. Traditionally, it was just simply a topic that was one of a medley of wishes that brands would every once in a while elevate and say, hey, is there any way we can get this faster? Can we get that report a little bit faster? Can we collect data a little bit faster? That used to be just a wish. But AI is changing the conversation around speed to insights as well. And today, that's one of the key topics we're going to cover when we talk about how the CX feedback loop is evolving in 2026. So let's start with speed to complete a survey. When we talk about speed to complete a survey, it's important to note that concerns about survey fatigue are leading to fewer survey questions. So what brands are saying is that, you know what, I need to reduce the number of questions that I'm asking in a survey. It's also leading to a decline in feedback studies. Whole studies are going away because response rates are declining and the brands are concerned about the friction it creates. And they don't want to do anything to undermine their relationship with their customer. So 54% of brands say concerns about survey fatigue is leading them to take these types of actions. But think about it for a moment, the outcome of this. And think about what it's saying. Most respondents taking a survey fall into two categories. People who will never take a survey unless they absolutely have something to say, and those people who will take a survey just because. When you look at those people who will never take a survey unless they have something important they want to share, the number of questions actually doesn't impact their willingness to give feedback. And that's a misnomer. So reducing the number of questions hasn't had the impact that most folks thought it would, which is to drive up responses. It hasn't occurred. And so that's something that you need to be aware of. Fewer questions in a survey doesn't solve that problem. On the other side, those people who like to give responses to surveys and provide feedback, they continue to do so. And so reducing the number of questions, well, most brands thought it would help spike up their response rates, hasn't seen that occur. And so that's a big issue that continues to plague brands today. And I'm sure everyone on the bridge has encountered this type of issue being spoken about at the corporate level. What we're really talking about when we talk about survey fatigue and when we talk about survey completion rates, when we talk about the number of responses given, we're actually talking simply about response rates. And I have an interesting question for you. The question goes something like this. How much has CX survey response rates declined in the past 20 years? I'm going to give you a couple of options, and if you can, in the chat, give me your answer. I'll give you some categories from which to choose from. Number one, if you think it's declined by 10%, put A in the chat. How about 30%? If you think it's 30%, Put in the chat B. 50%, put C. 80%, put D. I'm going to give you a second. Let's see what people say. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for responding. Let's take a look at what the numbers are saying. When we go back in time to 2005, if you just simply threw out a survey to your customers, any customers, you were likely going to get a response rate of about 25%. Fast forward to 2025, it's down to 5%. These are generally post-transaction surveys. Now, the story gets a little bit more complex. Say you have a very engaged audience. You could see on the other side of this that in 2005, about 40% response rate was a very normal thing to achieve amongst your most engaged audience. However, today, that number is down to 15%. And that represents the decline of 80% in survey responses. So it's no wonder brands are concerned about survey responses. It's no wonder that they're concerned about the decline. It is a real concern. And this is where the new CX feedback playbook comes in. This is the thing that I want to talk to you about today. This new CX feedback playbook is really here to integrate AI to solve two specific challenges. Number one is speed, and number two is response rates. The question is, how is it supposed to solve these two big challenges? So for the next few minutes, I'm going to walk through how AI is being integrated into the CX feedback loop in order to solve for these two significant issues that have been a real thorn in the side of data analysts, marketing folks, customer support folks, and organizations as a whole. Speed to insights is really the key way AI is injecting its way into the CX feedback loop. When it comes to survey design, it's having a huge impact. In terms of analysis, the same can be said. And of course, also in reporting. So AI is really impacting CX feedback loops in three very significant ways. So let's dig into that a little bit further. I will start by cautioning you. As you think about evolving your CX programs, and as you think about new ways to collect data, it's important to understand that not all CX solutions are the same. And the differences actually matter. So with that in mind, let's have a conversation around survey design. When it comes to survey design, you can go into ChatGPT right now and you can say, hey, write me a brand survey, and it'll spit you out one almost instantaneously. So you can get the foundations as a straw man for creating a good survey much faster than you could ever had before. And that's just the good. There's better. Better is engines that allow you to detect biases and ambiguity and even redundancies, and even offer skip logic into the survey creation method, all from a prompt. And so this is a really big advancement in speed from getting from, hey, I have some questions I need answers, to getting to survey design and getting to field. You're talking about a big reduction in time. And the best of breeds when it comes to survey designs, there are actually solutions that will design a very specific survey for you based on objectives that you've put in and outcomes you're trying to achieve, and then it will generate that survey for you. And so you have many choices when it comes to survey design. So choose wisely, especially if you're thinking about purchasing one of these solutions on a subscription model, which seems to be the way everything is going today. When it comes to analysis, the speed to analysis has improved dramatically. I can't even overstate that. You can throw some data into ChatGPT, and it will spit you out a very tight summary. There's other tools that even create topic categorization and intent analysis, which means it'll take the data, divide it by topics, analyze it at a much deeper level than just a generalized summary. And then there's tools that take it even deeper with team detection and topic modeling. Think about it. You can run a regression analysis and look at the output for that without having any understanding about how to conduct regression analysis. The same goes through for factor, the same goes through for cluster. All of these things are now at your fingertip. But there's risks involved with them as well. Because if you don't understand the underlying process, the foundational knowledge behind these various types of analysis, it's very easy to misinterpret what the data is saying. Even from the reporting, you can get a structured story with a clear narrative with just a prompt. You can even generate slides into structured decks from just a few pieces of data. And at the extreme, you can custom generate a report just by using prompts. This is a huge advancement over the past few years. And what it provides folks like us is access to data and reporting and polished information at a far faster pace than we've ever seen before. Some of these analysis used to take as much as 2 weeks that are done in just a few minutes. Reporting that used to take a couple of weeks to put a deck together can be done in just a few minutes. Survey design, minutes. So you can see at the edges, there's really a lot of trimming going on. So our speed to insights is really, really improving. And so that's one of the areas in which AI is impacting CX, specifically data. Gary, you raised a very, very good point. And that is exactly my point. Because things are easy, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's good. The foundational knowledge is still very necessary, because if you do not have that foundational knowledge and you leave it all up to the AI can lead you down a very different path than the real data suggests. And that's what I'm trying to bring to attention today, is to be aware of these systems. They are there, they are useful, but you have to use them carefully, because if you don't, you're at risk of creating more challenges than you already have, as opposed to reducing the amount of challenges that you have. Absolutely, Suzanne. This is why having the right AI and using AI in the right context is so important. Using it to as a replacement for a research department is definitely not a good solution. And so this is something that we have to be aware of, and we have to be cautious, right? There's a lot of promises that are being made, and those promises are certainly not living up to expectations. One of the things that's really been happening lately is that there's been a underlying push to reduce the amount of time it takes to complete a survey. Now, in theory, that sounds good, but with every second you save, you are losing potential data points that can be impactful. There is a cost benefit analysis to this that has to be undertaken. One of the new systems that have been introduced to combat that is voice AI surveys. They promise more engaging and more data in a shorter time frame. And this is something that sounds fantastic, right? Hey, I can get more data in a shorter period of time so I can maximize the use of that respondent's time. Sounds great in theory, but it does not always work out that way. So let's talk a little bit about this. I, I start by providing you with the same caution when we talk about these tools for in the earlier part of the conversation. Not all AI survey platforms, and there's a lot of them being produced right now, are the same. Some are being produced by technology folks that really don't understand research, and some folks that are understanding research but don't understand technology very well. And so what you need is a combination of both. And that's something that you need to bear in mind. So let's pull this apart a little bit. For those who don't understand voice AI surveys, it's like having a conversation with a customer, just one-on-one, intimate. Tell me what you think. Tell me how you feel. And then that unstructured data is then transformed into structured data that can be analyzed and used to uncover insights for improving the experience. The beauty about voice AI surveys is, and why it is being marketed as a tool that will get you more insights in a shorter period of time, is because you're not just collecting categorical data. What I mean by that is, hey, on a scale of 1 to 5, how do you feel? All right, 3 out of 5. You're actually getting contextual information associated with that. So why did you feel that way? That type of answer, which is very powerful information. You're also able to analyze the tone and sentiment, the word choices, the inflections, the pauses that are part of the conversation. And that means something. And so that can all be brought together to ensure that the data is more accurate than just simply a checkbox. But there are differences to be aware of. So, for example, there's different types of voice capture, right? There's ones that are very simple, it sounds like a robot, very basic, doesn't do a lot of probing. Then you get to the other side, which is it's almost human-like in terms of its ability to have conversations. At the end of the day, one feels like a form, the other feels like a conversation. And you certainly want the one that feels like a conversation. You want it to be adapting in real time to where the conversation is going. You want it to be able to provide the customer the opportunity to take their responses in the direction they want to take it within a certain set of limits. And there's many different ways to do it. And the ones that are best are the ones that are driven on LLM adaptive dialogue and are voice first, that provides seamless modality switching. And what that means is you're almost getting an immersive experience where you're hearing the question. There may be something on the screen that you can touch and move around. You can respond via voice. That immersive experience allows you to capture a lot of information, but also keeps the respondent engaged. And so those are the ones you want to really focus on if you're looking for this type of technological solution. So we talked about the different ways AI is being integrated. We talked about the new methodologies such as voice AI surveys. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, response rates. AI is providing a great opportunity for brands to skip surveys altogether and to analyze conversations. This is a huge opportunity. 46% of brands report in 2026 they are exploring other ways to measure customer sentiments instead of surveys. So different ways of tackling the fact that we don't have enough data around customer emotions. So this is the big wave that is coming when it comes to CX feedback. So let's dig into that a little bit, and I'll demystify it for you. Analyzing conversations is a very complex undertaking, and it's very easy to get fooled. So what are some of the watchouts? Let's start by peeling back the onion a little bit and thinking about any type of conversation. They all have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And not all parts of a conversation are equally important. The system has to be able to detect those important moments, and it has to have a way of detecting it accurately. What am I talking about? The approach around analyzing conversations has to be founded in theory, like affect theory. What model are you using? These are questions that really matter. How do you deal with customer scoring? How do you handle agent scoring? How do you get to a single interaction scores? Because I don't want 50 million scores. I don't need more data. I need more precise data and smaller volume of scores, but things that drive me to an action clearly. And unless you're getting that, what you're maybe paying for is just more data and more confusion. So your ability to analyze these conversations effectively is very important. So what can you analyze in today's world using AI? You can analyze emails, you can analyze chats, and you can even analyze phone calls. Think about it. This is something that you can now do so that for every single interaction, you now have a score associated with how that interaction went from the customer's perspective, from the agent's perspective, and you can combine those two scores to get one overarching score to tell you how that experience went. That's a huge change from getting 15 to 20% response rates to getting 100% coverage which means that silent majority that you often hear about in boardrooms, hey, how about the rest of the folks? How do they feel? That question will start to go away. But, and this is a big but, how these conversations are analyzed is very black box sensitive. What I mean by that is that much of the time you have no idea what's going on in the background, and that's unacceptable. Because if you don't know how these scores are being calculated, you will be at significant risk of false interpretations. And that is an issue. Look at all the different solutions and types of solutions that are out there for AI voice analysis and capabilities. There's so many different capabilities. Getting it right is not easy. But what's important to know is that the analysis underneath, okay, is what is foundational to making this stuff works, okay? And if you get that right, the data you will get out of it is very important. You need to get to root causes. You need to understand where the conversation goes wrong and how to adjust. There's many different types of analysis that can be done, but if you're not pulling on the right data and your models for analyzing that data is not correct, everything after that is going to suffer. And so you have to be aware. And this is not something you can learn unless you look under the hood. Like the good old days, you got to kick the tires on the car to make sure that what you're getting is actually what you need. The final topic I want to cover today is synthetic data. There has been so much talk about synthetic data. It has been almost nauseating. This was supposed to be the golden ticket to solving our customer knowledge gap. However, again, you have to be cautious. For those who are not aware, synthetic data is data that is created by a computer instead of being collected from real people. But it's supposed to be designed and behave like real humans. And that's the challenge. Remember, I talked about humans take shortcuts. They are not what we call rational decision makers. And so synthetic data has a problem with that. Let's talk a little bit about some of the problems. Number one, trust. How do you know if you have good synthetic data or not? Number two, how does your synthetic data stay anchored in reality? You have to avoid these bias loops and drift. For those who are not aware, drift is when new things come up that you're just not there before, and over time, as people's preferences shift, your model doesn't stay attached to that changing preference. And the third is similar, but slightly different, which is preserving discovery. And that means, how do you account for something that happens in the future that has never happened before? And how does that impact preferences and decision making? It certainly will. But how do you account for that in a model? You can't. And so what you can use synthetic data for is far more limited than you would originally have thought. The second thing to be aware of when it comes to synthetic data is that at level one analysis, synthetic data is pretty good. And level one analysis means, hey, I just want some frequencies. Tell me what percentage of people said A or B. Those binary kinds of questions, it does a reasonably good job. However, once you get to the second layer, whereas you start to look for connections between data points, you use things like cross-tabulation, correlations, factor analysis, regression. Once you start to do those advanced analytics on that data, the data very quickly falls apart, which means the data is not as good as it should be. And this quality issue is going to continue to arise. So before you jump all in on synthetic data, please, I caution you, be very aware of what you're getting into. It may sound like a great solution, a fast way to get to some insights, but it's also riddled with potential roadblocks. So what's my goal for you? For those who took the time to attend this event? My goal is to help you integrate AI effectively into your brand's CX data collection strategy. I've outlined a lot of issues, potential roadblocks, some things that you will no doubt encounter in the future, and many folks are already encountering today. How do we know this? Well, a simple look at the data, a simple search on Copilot will tell you that about 80% of AI projects fail to meet business objectives today. But the demand to move forward is still there. So you have to be cautious. Integrating AI into the CX feedback playbook, it's creating significant new blind spots that have never existed before. And you have to be aware of that before you make decisions. If you jump headlong, you will be making expensive investments. But the question will remain, can you afford to fail while your competitors succeed? My call to you is simply this. Don't let confident decision-making be a function of your naivety. True confidence comes from knowledge. Don't leave the underpinnings or the foundation of how you get to that knowledge in a black box. It will not be good for you personally, and it will not be good for your brand and your decision-making long-term. So AI, does it offer opportunities? Absolutely. Are there benefits to be had? Yes. But the decisions you make of what you choose and how you use it matters more now than ever before. So please be cautious. If you want to be an informed and confident decision maker, you want to talk about these topics a little bit more, book a free 30-minute session with me before you begin integrating AI into your CX feedback strategy. There's lots to learn and there's lots to know. And I'm more than happy to start that conversation with you to make sure that you get started on the right foot. Thank you for attending. If you have any questions, feel free. You can put it in the chat if you don't wish to speak. If you want to ask a question, go right ahead.
So, Jason, this was a great session as well, and I know that the world as we know it on how to really analyze and understand research is has been flipped on its head a little bit because of this new capability. And I think one of the things that I see a lot is that even what you described, there are so many pieces of the puzzle. So when you think about like doing one thing right, that's one set of challenges to figure out how to do any one of these things right. What are you seeing with companies that in essence are trying to do all of them? And the challenges that a company like that has when they are trying to listen better and differently. They're also trying to analyze better. They're going to trying to use synthetic data, et cetera, that they're trying to do all of these things. What are you seeing for companies that are able to be successfully during this time, and maybe those that are struggling a little bit more?
There's two things I'm seeing, and leadership is really the first thing is leadership is really pushing for AI integration. Okay, and number two, employees are scared, and so what this leads to is an issue of confidence around what should I be doing and how to do it most effectively. And what the companies and the people that have been most successful have been using AI to solve a specific business challenge, a very targeted issue and a very targeted solution to build this targeted solution against that specific use case. The AI is failing because it's been promised as an all-in-one solution. And that's why you have the 80% failure rate. As a result, you have to be very cautious and be very, very analytical around what is the challenge, what's the business problem you're trying to solve, and how can AI get me from A to B a little bit faster, but still allow me to understand what's happening underneath the hood. That's the big issue. And those that are jumping ahead without thinking about the nuance, not thinking about carefully about the use case, they're the ones that are struggling the most, and they're the ones that are reporting the highest level of failure.
Yeah, I would say those are also probably a lot of the same companies where the proverbial CEO said, "Hey, go get us an AI strategy, not let's solve this problem and maybe we use AI to do it." It's been more of a, go find tech and chase the shiny object versus actually having a strategic need.
Yeah, and I think a big part of the problem is the AI is actually creating the AI strategy. So if you think about it, right, the leadership says, "Hey, I need an AI strategy." You know what people are doing? They're going to Copilot and typing in, "Build me an AI strategy." And they're using that as their strategy. And as Megan said, you're putting the cart before the horse, aren't you? You're absolutely bang on. And it's like, what I've actually seen this happening at a number of different companies where you look at their strategy document and they all have the same strategy document and it's all seemed to have come independently. Well, the connective tissues, they all seem to use the same AI to generate their strategy. And so there's yeah, Sean, it's one of the big issues is that it's so complex. You To ask a question like that, you're almost asking the wrong question to begin with. You have to start with the business question first. What am I trying to accomplish?
Yeah. I love Gary's note. He said, "The irony of asking AI for its own strategy."
Yeah.
That's a great one. Well, and I think one of the things I'm also seeing in the same context is the same thing we're describing about really understanding the customer experience and how to, listen better and understand better what's going on. What I'm also seeing and hearing from peers in the industry are the executives, the C-suite is doing the same thing.
Hmm.
And I even had one person say, the C-suite is going to AI to ask CX questions instead of going to their CX team. So now you even have this issue within businesses where leaders are doing it. So it's complex stuff, and so I highly recommend grab some time on Jason's calendar. This is a great value to really understand his experience coming out of this space and really understanding how to use data analytics and AI in a more strategic way. So some incredible opportunity for you guys to pick the brains of someone who's really at the forefront of a lot of that work. So, Jason, thank you so much for sharing today. If there are any last questions, happy to answer those. If not, we'll close this out. And a quick reminder, we're doing a little bit of changes to the CX on the Rocks and the events in the very near future, but it is an awesome opportunity to get involved now while we're making some changes. So cxontherocks.com, join us, keep tabs on what's going on and what's changing. We're for sure going to have another event next month and looking forward to as well. So thank you as well. Great session, everybody, and we'll talk to you guys soon.